We get you set for everything happening with the Yankees. Pitchers and catchers just 2 weeks away, guys. Guys getting ready to head to Tampa. Guys already in Tampa. You're a player. You're getting ready. You're thinking what right now when you're 2 weeks away?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Bob. At this point right now, you're ready for the offseason to be over, and you're ready to get to the warm weather. You're ready to get down to Tampa. If you're a pitcher, you've been throwing off the mound indoors, maybe if you're on the East Coast. If you're down in Florida, obviously you're outside. If you're a hitter, you're fine-tuning your swing. But the mentality switches at the end of January when you get to the month of February, and you say, I've had enough of being at home. I've had enough of being in the cold weather. It's time to get to Tampa. It's time to get going.
And then all your neighbors, as you prepare for the season, would be hearing loud vocal exercises from your house? Right?
Well, February 1st is our first game, from spring training. So, yeah, I've been doing all the vocal exercises. I'm ready. I think I'm in good shape for it. I still want to lose more pounds, for the first on camera. But, yeah, I'm pumped. It should be fun.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what's ahead for the Yankees. And everybody wants to know who's on third, obviously, and that's not a comic bit. That's legit. Who do you think? I know you've talked to Aaron Boone and some other people about what's going to happen at third base.
Well, I think it's pretty fluid because they have an opportunity to use Jazz Chisholm wherever they want. He could play third, he could play second. So if it's easier for them to get a second baseman, then Jazz stays at third, where he actually played very well. Now, if they want to keep Jazz at second, then they have to find a third baseman. Right now, unless they move Marcus Stroman, I believe that their third baseman is going to come from within a DJ LeMahieu and Oswaldo Cabrera, Oswald Peraza. Those are the guys right now that they're lining up to be their third baseman. Is that going to be the case? I'm not quite sure. I think there's still a move to be made. I don't know which way they'll go, but I think it would be a little bit of a surprise to me if they go with those three at third base.
Yeah, we've been preaching at this desk all winter about the Yankees being patient and kind of waiting for maybe a third baseman or a second baseman to fall into their laps, a player who maybe didn't get the type of deal that they wanted to. But right now with the in-house candidates, I think DJ LeMahieu would be the front runner in spring training to see what he looks like. Obviously, injuries have taken a toll on him. A guy like Cabrera is such a valuable player to have on your roster because of his versatility. So he's going to have to go out there and have a monster spring to say he's our starting third baseman. Michael, I'm with you. I think this is a fluid situation that at some point, either before spring training, during spring training, there are going to be some moves that are going to be happening.
And there are some people out there that could actually fill that role. Kike Hernandez, who the Yankees liked, and he went to the Dodgers last year, not the Yankees. Again, the Yankees, I think, have to clear some salary about that last Cohen tax that's out there. If they do that, maybe they make a play for somebody like that. But if nothing happens where it's static and they can't move Stroman's $18 million salary, I think they will go into the season. That doesn't mean the end of the world because of the fact you can make trades once the season begins. They could see where they are. They could see how DJ LeMahieu is performing. And then if it's not happening for them, then they could make a move during the year.
All right, so let's talk about what's happening at the catching position. We know Austin Wells will be the starting catcher. They dealt Jose Trevino. That was one of their offseason moves. So as we take a look at this, who's going to be his backup?
Well, let's first get to Austin Wells. I mean, what a difference a year makes, right? He came into spring training. Would he make the team as a platoon player? Could he catch defensively? He has proved himself last year with what he did, getting the Yankees to the World Series. Now he's going to be able to going into camp saying, I'm the #1 guy. Who's going to be the backup? Is it going to be Jackson, who they got in a trade, who's a right-handed hitter, is a real good catch-and-throw guy, an above-average thrower, doesn't have the big bat from the right-hand side, but when I look at it, Michael, traditionally, you have a left-handed starting hitting catcher in Wells. You'd love to have a righty as a backup. He kind of fits that bill for me.
It's interesting they could go with J.C. Escaro, who's out of this system. He's a late bloomer. He's going to be 30 years old, and everybody likes what he's about. But I'll tell you, with the Alex Jackson situation, he has everything that they love, as John said. He's an outstanding framer. He has not been able to hit anywhere where he's been in the big leagues. So do you want a backup catcher that hitting 100 might be a little bit of a chore for him? Again, I'm not sure exactly which way it's going to go. The Yankees have been loaded with catchers in their system. They've gotten rid of about 3 of them over the last year or so, and there's still more down there. But right now, Alex Jackson is not on the 40-man roster, so that would have to make a move.
Yeah, the one thing I like about the two catchers we're talking about possibly being backups, they're older in age. They don't have a whole lot of big league experience, but they have the years playing professional baseball. So when they come into this role, if they get this role, they're going to know Austin Wells is the man. He's going to be the starter. He's going to be going out there 5 days, maybe 6 days a week, and their role is going to be to sit there, work with the pitching staff, and support Austin Wells. It's a lot easier to do that when you're older, 28, 29, 30 years old, than it is when you're a young kid trying to establish yourself. I like the fact that they both have some age on them.
And it's an important position for the Yankees. It really is, because think about this. Austin Wells was never a question about whether he could hit. His bat was always going to play in the big leagues. People worried whether or not he'd be able to catch. He's proven that wrong. He's caught very, very well. The pitchers love pitching to him. He really prepares quite a bit. But you look at the end of the year, he wore down. This is not a guy that they adjusted that much that he just stopped hitting in the month of September. I think he wore down because they loved the fact that he was such a good catcher and he had pop as well. I think they might have overused him just a bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the one thing when you hear he wore down, people are just going to assume that's physically. That's part of it. But also your first year in the major leagues, going through 162 games, it is a mental grind. And especially being somebody trying to establish yourself at the major leagues, work with a pitching staff, and try to get it done at the plate, it wears on you mentally. So to Michael's point, I think this is a huge offseason for him, and he'll figure out now mentally when to get ready to play these games. And I mean that when you say you go through your pregame routine, you learn as you get a little bit older just to kind of go through the motions, get your body ready, and then mentally you turn it on at 7:05.
Top of the lineup, Aaron Boone has a big decision to make. Fill in the name in that #1 spot in the lineup, the leadoff spot. Who might it be?
Well, from talking to people during the offseason, it looks like they could be leaning a little bit toward Jason Dominguez. Now, Aaron did a radio interview today where he said Dominguez or Jazz Chisholm are candidates for that. But the problem with Jazz Chisholm, this is a guy who could hit you 30 to 35 home runs. Do you want that in the #1 hole? Do you want him in the middle of the order to drive people in? Now, the flip side, that's a little bit of a concern. If you go with Dominguez leading off, he's 21 years old. This is his big chance in the major leagues. Is that too much for him to handle? And the outside one could be, you go to Anthony Volpe again, and Anthony Volpe did not handle the leadoff spot that well last year. When they dropped him down in the order, hit much better.
Yeah, the one thing about Jason Dominguez, if he's going to be the starting left fielder, do you want to throw him in a leadoff spot and maybe put a little more pressure on him right at the beginning of the year? Or do you put somebody like a Bellinger or a Chisholm or Anthony Volpe? Do you give him another shot in that leadoff role and see how that first couple of weeks goes? If it's a smooth transition, whoever is there, then you let Dominguez figure it out later down in the lineup. If it's not going well and Dominguez is swinging the bat well, maybe he gets a shot at the end of April, beginning of May, and see if he can ride that all the way through the year. They love with Dominguez his plate discipline. He's going to see a lot of pitches. A guy like Chisholm, we saw it last year. He loves to go up there and swing the bat, try to ambush some of these pitchers and try to hit some home runs. Not your prototypical leadoff guy. But in today's game, we really don't have too many prototypical leadoff guys all around Major League Baseball. So that's probably the one spot. Yankees don't have a leadoff hitter that just jumps out at you saying it's going to be his job.
But let me ask you a follow-up. So if you're saying give Dominguez maybe a little runway and then he becomes a leadoff hitter in May, there's one school of thought that would be, what's the difference? Would the difference be maybe 100, 120 at-bats in the first month of the season to see where you're at? Wouldn't you see that in spring training? Could you make that argument?
Spring training is completely different, Bob, than getting to the regular season, and the bright lights are on. The batting average, all the production actually counts. And if you get off to a good start as a young player, you can ride that confidence all the way through the rest of the year. On the flip side, if you get off to a slow start as a young player, we've seen it with a lot of guys, it starts snowballing and it's tough to fight your way out of it. I would love to see the Yankees make it as easy for Dominguez as possible. Play him in left field. Tell him you're the starting left fielder and you're not going to move around the outfield. And let's set you up maybe down towards the end of the lineup, get your swing going, and we'll figure out the right time to lead you off.
Well, I think it's imperative they handle him the right way, because I think he might be the most important player for the Yankees. I think you know what you're going to get from every single person. There is no plan B at this point if Dominguez doesn't work out. I think the Yankees have to watch him very closely. They need him to succeed.
Yeah, the Yankees love his potential, but just what you talked about, Michael, there are a lot of question marks. He burst onto the scene, and everybody thought this kid's going to be a superstar, but then we think about the injuries, and when you think about how the year ended for him last year, the Yankees were basically saying, we want him to be on our postseason roster and be a starter, and he didn't go out there and take it. Defensively, he struggled out in left field. Offensively, he couldn't get anything going. So he's gotten some opportunities now, and this is going to be a huge one for him. He's got to come into spring training healthy. He's got to have a decent spring and just feel good about it, but getting off to a big start, or at least a decent start, is going to be imperative for him.
Real quick follow, end of last season, 13 games in left field, had one error, didn't look great out there. Would that be a level of concern for the Yanks, or are they like, we can sort a lot of stuff out with him this offseason?
I think it's a huge, huge level of concern. Again, Aaron said today on that radio interview that he's going to have Dominguez in left and Bellinger in center. I respectfully think I would have it the other way around because he really struggled in left field. As John said, they wanted him to be in that postseason left field, and he just could not do the job. Isn't it better to put him in a position where he's very comfortable in center field? And Bellinger said that he would play left. He's a veteran. He could do it. Now you're putting a kid out there that has to succeed offensively and learn a new position. He's a center fielder, but they have come out and said he's going to play left field.
Yeah, what I like about what Aaron said today is he's our left fielder, and we're not going or try not to move him around the outfield. So I think from Jason's standpoint, you can say, okay, from next week when you get down to Florida, you're going to be tracking balls in left field. How it comes off the bat from a left-hander and a right-hander and the different spin. And you just say you're going to have to figure this out, because if you're good enough to play center field in the major leagues, you should be good enough to play left field. We know Yankee Stadium is a huge left field, but for this kid, if he's that type of a prospect, he should be able to figure it out.
But the one thing we always hear from outfielders, John, it's easier to play center field because the ball's coming right at you. If the ball is slicing off a left-handed batter's bat to left field, that caused him problems. We saw it last year. It caused him problems. He's an extraordinary athlete. He should be able to work it out. But again, I need him to be as comfortable as possible and succeed. And I think the best chance of success is to have him be comfortable in defense.
But isn't a simple message? This is your position. Learn it.
Figure out a way.
Yeah,
I put the reps in, and I agree with what Michael's saying. I mean, it's not going to be an easy transition, but you figure that if the Yankees are saying it's your job, go out there and figure it out, he should be able to do it.